Parents and librarians claim South Carolina Superintendent of Education is operating a quote statewide censorship regime. The groups now filed a lawsuit challenging a rule that's banned some books from public schools. Local News Live's Mary Green spoke to one of the librarians suing.
It is a dramatic overreach, and we need people to stand up and say, this is too extreme. This is not what our schools are for. We need to get politics out of our schools and focus on literacy and educating our students.
The ACLU of South Carolina brought this lawsuit on behalf of the South Carolina Association of School Librarians and 3 high school students and their parents. They're challenging a regulation that's been used to ban 21 books from the shelves of South Carolina school libraries and classrooms, claiming it's part of the state superintendent's statewide censorship regime. The rule says all books and instructional material in South Carolina public schools must be age and developmentally appropriate, and that they're not for any students if they include descriptions or visual depictions of sexual conduct.
With this regulation, we are not looking at author's intent. We are not looking at the work as a whole, and we are not looking at the literary merit of these books.
The State Board of Education has the final say over what's appropriate, and its determinations apply statewide. Plaintiffs claim the regulation is vague, overbroad, and unconstitutional.
Librarians as a whole tend to be pretty anti-censorship, and we champion intellectual freedom. And this definitely quiets our ability to feel like we can fully engage with students about reading materials.
A spokesperson for the South Carolina Department of Education says it will vigorously defend these common sense policies which set clear and legally sound standards for South Carolina's public schools.
A record number of books were banned by schools across the country last year. That's according to a recent report from PEN America, a nonprofit dedicated to defending freedom of expression. Joining me right now to talk more about the report's findings is Casey Meehan, director of PEN America's Freedom to Read program. Now, your report found this year a record number of books banned. What kind of numbers are we talking about here?
Sure. So over the past school year, the 2024 to 2025 school year, we recorded nearly 7,000 instances of book bans. And when we track back to the 2021, where we first started, we're looking at nearly 23,000 instances of book bans across 45 states and almost 500 school districts.
Wow, that's a lot of books right there. What kind of books are we talking about?
Sure. Overwhelmingly, the books that are being banned are books that have LGBTQ plus representation, books that talk about race and racism or feature characters of color, books that talk about sex and sexuality, as well as books that talk about violence. Or really now we're seeing, as 4 years into this movement, we're seeing so many books that, have a range of topics in there, but those tend to be the books that are, most targeted for removals.
And we talked about South Carolina being one of the places where this is happening. Where else are these book bans taking place?
Sure. And South Carolina is a bit unique in that there is a state level kind of no read list, as we call it. We've dubbed it at Penn. And there are other states that have, the similar kind of no read list coming from the state level. But really, as I shared, we have seen book bans now in most states. But looking at the last 2024 to 2025 school year, the top 5 states where we tracked book bans were Florida, Texas, Tennessee, Idaho, and Iowa. But again, that's a snapshot of a year. And we know that there are cases of book bans that go or underreported that don't show up in our index. So we imagine that it's in more places than we can even count. But certainly our data shows those 5 states leading the way last school year.
And there's a lot of parents out there who support pulling these type of books from the shelves. If you were talking to them face to face, what would you say to them or those viewpoints?
Sure. I mean, public schools and public libraries are intended to serve all students, all families. And when we restrict certain content areas or certain identities or ideas, we are bringing a very narrow viewpoint down onto what is and is not available for public school students and at our public libraries. We see this happening in public libraries as well. So, for us, it's always, we advocate a more open society where students have more access to information, not less. And I think that's our big message. And I'll also add, for as many, we certainly, there are parents who are looking to see this type of, certain books restricted. But there are also so many parents that want to have these books available to their students in schools. In our past report, where we tracked 87 school districts where we, could identify book bans happening, and within them, about 70 of those school districts had very active resistance against book banning. So those were parents, students, administrators, educators, librarians standing up to say, we want these books on our
And what
shelves.
can those parents do to make sure those books stay on the shelves?
Get loud, get local, keep showing up, attend your school board meetings, ask your educators and librarians if there's, any kind of censorship happening within their school system. Go visit your public library, tell them that you love seeing diverse and inclusive books on shelves. I mean, there's many ways to get involved, but certainly our message this year is to get vocal and get local.
That's Casey Meehan with PEN America. Thank you so much for joining me right here.
Thanks, Ryan.
Let's take a look at some of the top books that were banned last school year. Number one is A Clockwork Orange. Tied for second are Breathless by Jennifer Niven and Sold by Patricia McCormick. In third is Last Night at the Telegraph Club. The fourth most banned book was A Court of Mist and Fury. And fifth is Crank. You're watching Local News Live. We're bringing you stories impacting you and your family.